The Green Reclamation, a sci-fi story. Part 1. The vines were already tasting the air when Lira opened her eyes. She felt them before she saw them. The faint tremor of tendrils brushing the bark beneath her hammock, the almost inaudible rasp of cellulose sliding over cellulose. The forest was hunting again. Heat signatures, breath, heartbeat, anything warm enough to promise calories. Lira froze, every muscle locked. The night canopy around her glowed faintly with bioluminescent spores drifting like green snow. The treetop village, what remained of it, was silent. Too silent. No creaking rope bridges. No murmured watch rotations. No children whispering when they thought adults couldn't hear. Just the vines. They slithered along the underside of the platforms, searching. She exhaled slowly through her nose, letting her breath cool before it left her. The vines reacted instantly, twitching toward the sound. One tendril curled upward, brushing the edge of her hammock. Another followed, thicker, pulsing faintly with internal fluids. They were close enough now that she could smell them, a sharp, peppery scent like crushed nettles. Lira reached for the knife strapped to her thigh. Not to fight. That would be suicide. To cut herself free. The vines surged. She sliced the hammock rope and dropped. Air rushed past her. The world spun. She hit a lower branch hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs, rolled, and caught another with her elbow. Pain flared white. She clung to the branch, teeth clenched, as the vines above whipped downward like striking serpents. They missed her by centimeters. She didn't wait for a second attempt. She swung herself onto a thicker limb and sprinted along it, boots thudding softly on moss. Behind her, the vines shrieked, a high, keening vibration that rattled the leaves. They had her heat signature now. They would not lose it. Lira leapt to the next tree. The forest that ate the world. The canopy stretched endlessly in every direction, a living continent of branches, leaves, and predatory growth. The engineered plants, once humanity's salvation, had become its executioners. Designed to clean the atmosphere, they had evolved into something else entirely. A global forest that consumed everything warm, everything moving, everything alive. Cities had fallen first. Concrete cracked under expanding roots. Glass shattered as vines punched through windows. Streets became rivers of creeping green. Humanity fled upward. Tree villages, rope networks, platforms suspended above the killing ground. But the forest always climbed, always learned, always reached. Lira had grown up in the treetops. She knew the rules. Stay cool. Stay quiet. Stay moving. Tonight, the village had broken all three. She didn't know how the vines had found them so quickly. They usually needed hours to triangulate heat sources. But tonight they had come like a wave, coordinated, purposeful, as if guided, as if something deeper in the forest had awakened. Lira vaulted over a gap between branches and landed in a crouch. Her breath steamed in the cold night air. She forced herself to slow it. The vines behind her were gaining, their tendrils whipping through the canopy like green lightning. She needed to reach the glider, if it was still intact, if the vines hadn't already consumed it, if anyone else had survived long enough to. A scream tore through the night. Male. Close. Familiar. Tarek. Lira skidded to a halt on the branch, heart hammering. The vines surged past her, drawn to the sound. She hesitated only a moment before turning and sprinting toward the scream. Tarek was one of the scouts. One of the few who knew the old routes. One of the few she trusted. She couldn't leave him. Not to the vines. Not to the forest. The last survivor. She found him tangled in a web of roots. Tarek hung upside down from a branch, one leg ensnared by a thick vine that pulsed with digestive enzymes. His skin steamed where the vine touched it. He was trying to cut himself free, but every slash of his knife only made the vine constrict harder. "Lira!" he gasped when he saw her. "Don't. The vines, they're learning." "I noticed," she muttered. She leapt to the branch above him and swung down, slicing at the vine with her knife. The blade sparked. The vine's outer layer had hardened, bark-like, armored. New. Bad. Tarek, what happened? She whispered. They came from below, he said through clenched teeth. Not from the canopy. From the roots. As if something drove them upward. Lira's stomach tightened. Driven. Not random. Not instinctive. Directed. She slashed again, harder. The vine split with a wet crack, spraying sap that hissed on her skin. Tarek fell, and she caught him by the wrist, hauling him onto the branch beside her. He was shaking, not from fear, from cold. The vines had drained heat from him. We need to move, she said. The glider. Gone, Tarek whispered. They took it. Lira swore under her breath. Then we head east, she said. Toward the dead zone. Tarek stared at her as if she'd lost her mind. No one goes there. That's why we're going. The dead zone. The dead zone was a rumor, a myth whispered by travelers. A place where the forest had withered, where vines turned brittle and leaves fell like ash. A place where the forest's hunger ended. A place where something worse began. Lira had never believed it. Until now. The vines behind them shrieked again. Closer. Tarek struggled to stand. I can't outrun them. You don't have to, Lira said. Just stay close. She grabbed his arm and pulled him along the branch. They moved through the canopy like shadows, leaping from limb to limb, dodging vines that lashed at them from below. The forest roared around them, a living storm of leaves and tendrils. The dead zone lay miles away. They would never make it on foot. Unless Lira spotted a cluster of broad, fan-shaped leaves ahead. A natural gliding platform. Dangerous, unstable, but better than dying. She dragged Tarek toward it. Lira, no. Trust me. She didn't wait for agreement. She sprinted across the leaves, feeling them bend under her weight, and jumped. The world dropped away. Wind tore at her hair. The canopy blurred beneath her. Tarek screamed beside her, flailing, but Lira angled her body, catching the updraft. The leaves acted like wings, slowing their descent. Behind them, the vines hurled themselves into the air, trying to follow. They fell short. For now, Lira and Tarek glided toward the horizon, toward the faint, unnatural darkness where the forest ended, toward the dead zone. The edge of death. They landed hard on a slanted trunk, tumbling through brittle branches that snapped like dry bones. Lira rolled to her feet, knife drawn, scanning the shadows. Silence. No vines. No leaves. No forest. The trees here were skeletal, stripped of bark and color. The ground below was visible, a cracked, gray expanse littered with dead roots. The air smelled wrong. Metallic. Cold. Tarek shivered violently. This place, he whispered. It feels empty. Good, Lira said. Empty means safe. But she didn't believe it. Nothing in the world was safe. Not anymore. They descended the dead tree carefully, boots crunching on brittle wood. The ground felt alien beneath her feet. Solid, unmoving. She hadn't touched soil in years. Tarek knelt, running a trembling hand over the cracked earth. No growth, he murmured. No spores. No heat signatures. It's like the forest refuses to enter. Or something keeps it out, Lira said. Tarek looked up sharply. You think something killed the forest? I think something scared it. They moved deeper into the dead zone. The silence grew heavier, the air colder, the ground smoother. And then they saw it. A structure, half buried in the earth. Metallic, angular, human. Tarek's breath caught. A facility. Lira approached slowly, heart pounding. The building was massive, its walls covered in rust and scorch marks. A faded logo was barely visible on the metal surface. Genesis Bioengineering Division Atmospheric Restoration Project. Lira felt her blood run cold. This is where it started, she whispered. Tarek swallowed hard. Where they made the plants. And where they lost control. The entrance was partially collapsed, but a narrow gap remained. A faint light flickered inside, not natural light, artificial, electric. Someone was still here, or something. The heart of the ruin. The interior smelled of dust and ozone. Emergency lights flickered along the ceiling, casting long shadows across the corridor. Lira moved silently, knife ready, Tarek limping behind her. The walls were lined with shattered glass panels and dead screens. Old warning signs peeled from the metal. Biohazard Level 5 authorized personnel only do not enter without thermal shielding. Tarek touched one of the signs. Thermal shielding. The plants hunt heat. They must have known even then. They knew, Lira said. And they lied. They reached a large chamber. And froze. Rows of pods lined the walls, cylindrical tanks filled with murky fluid. Most were cracked. Empty. But a few still glowed faintly, their contents obscured. Tarek stepped closer. These aren't plant pods. No, Lira said. They're human. A hiss echoed through the chamber. Not mechanical. Organic. Lira spun, knife raised. A figure stepped from the shadows. Tall. Thin. Skin pale as bone. Eyes black and reflective. Not human. Not plant. Something in between. Tilted its head, studying them. Then it spoke. You should not have come here. Its voice was soft. Almost gentle. And utterly wrong. Tarek stumbled backward. What? What are you? The creature blinked slowly. I am what remains, it said. What your kind created. What the forest fears. Lira tightened her grip on her knife. We're not here to fight. Good, the creature said. Because you would lose. It stepped closer, moving with unnatural grace. The forest hunts you, it said. But it will not enter this place. It knows what sleeps beneath. What sleeps beneath? Lira asked. The creature smiled. Thin, terrible smile. The first seed. The floor trembled. Deep below them. Something stirred. Something vast. Something alive. The first seed. The creature gestured toward a sealed door at the far end of the chamber. You came seeking safety, it said. But safety does not exist. Not anymore. Only choices. What choices? Lira asked. To flee, the creature said. Or to awaken what lies below. Tarek shook his head violently. Awaken? Are you insane? The forest already destroyed the world. The forest was a mistake, the creature said. A mutation. An evolution beyond your control. But the first seed, it was designed to correct mistakes. Lira's voice was barely a whisper. Correct how? By resetting the biosphere, the creature said. By consuming everything. The floor trembled again. Harder. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Tarek grabbed Lira's arm. We need to leave. Now. But Lira didn't move. She stared at the sealed door. At the faint, rhythmic thrum behind it. A heartbeat. A giant heartbeat. The creature watched her. You feel it, it said. The world ending. The forest spreading. Humanity dying. You came here because you sensed the truth. Lira swallowed. What truth? That the forest is not the end, the creature said. It is the beginning of the end. The vines outside shrieked. The forest had reached the edge of the dead zone. It would not stay out forever. Lira stepped toward the sealed door. Tarek grabbed her. Lira, don't. We can't outrun the forest forever, she said. If there's something here that can stop it. It won't stop it, Tarek said. It'll replace it. The creature nodded. Yes. Lira stared at the door. At the heartbeat. At the future. At the end. And she made her choice. Part 2. The heartbeat behind the sealed door grew louder. Slow. Heavy. Wet. As if something enormous was dreaming beneath the metal. Tarek's grip tightened on Lira's arm. We can still run. The forest hasn't crossed the boundary yet. It will, Lira said. You heard it. It's changing. Learning. It won't stop at the edge forever. The creature watched them with its black, reflective eyes. The forest fears what sleeps below. It remembers. Plants don't remember, Tarek snapped. The creature tilted its head. These do. The heartbeat thudded again, rattling dust from the ceiling. Lira stepped closer to the sealed door. The metal was warm beneath her palm. Too warm, like skin stretched over bone. Tarek, she said softly, if this thing can stop the forest, it won't stop it, he whispered. It'll erase everything. The creature smiled faintly. Yes. Lira didn't look away from the door. Maybe that's better than being hunted until the last of us is gone. Tarek's voice cracked. You don't mean that. But she did. She had seen too many villages swallowed. Too many people dragged screaming into the canopy. Too many nights listening to vines scrape against the platforms, searching for warmth. Humanity was dying. Maybe it deserved to. She pressed her hand harder against the door. It pulsed beneath her touch, a heartbeat answering hers. The door opens. The creature moved closer. If you open it, you cannot close it again. Lira swallowed. What is it? The first seed, the creature said. The prototype. The origin. The one designed to reset the biosphere if the forest evolved beyond control. Tarek shook his head. A failsafe. They built a failsafe. They built a god, the creature corrected. The lights flickered. The vines outside shrieked again, closer now at the very edge of the dead zone. Lira could hear them scraping against the boundary, testing it, probing it. They were afraid, but hunger was stronger than fear. The creature stepped back. Choose. Lira took a breath and pressed the release panel. The door hissed, metal groaned, and the chamber filled with a smell like rotting flowers. Tarek gagged. Lira! The door slid open. Darkness spilled out. Not absence of light. A presence. A thick, suffocating blackness that clung to the air like oil. It crawled across the floor, tendrils of shadow writhing like smoke underwater. The heartbeat thundered. Something moved in the dark. Something vast. Something waking. Lira staggered back as the darkness brushed her boot. It was cold. Not the cold of winter. The cold of deep space. The cold of something that had never known sunlight. The creature bowed its head. It has sensed you. Tarek grabbed Lira's shoulders. Close it. Close it now. But the door was no longer responding. The darkness held it open. The thing in the pit. A shape emerged. Not fully. Not clearly. Just hints. A curve of something chitinous. A ripple of something membranous. A glint of something like an eye, but too large, too deep, too empty. The darkness around it pulsed with each heartbeat. Lira couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The creature spoke softly, reverently. It was designed to consume the forest, to devour the mutation, to reset the world. Tarek's voice was barely a whisper. It's not alive. It is more than alive, the creature said. It is inevitable. The thing shifted again. The darkness thickened. And then, a whisper. Not sound. A thought. Warmth. Lira gasped. It was inside her mind. Warmth. Hunger. Warmth. Hunger. Warmth. She stumbled backward, clutching her head. Tarek caught her, shaking her. Lira! Stay with me. The creature watched calmly. It senses heat. All heat. It was designed to cleanse the biosphere of excess energy, to bring balance. Lira forced the words out. It eats warmth. Yes, the creature said. All warmth. Tarek's face went pale. Lira. That means everything, she whispered. It would eat everything. The vines outside shrieked again. This time the sound was different. Not hunting. Screaming. The forest had felt the awakening. And it was terrified. The forest breaks. The ground trembled violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The creature stiffened. It is rising. Tarek pulled Lira toward the exit. We have to go. Now. But the vines had already crossed the boundary. They poured into the dead zone like a tidal wave of green, their tendrils thrashing wildly. Not hunting. Fleeing. Fleeing the thing in the pit. Lira stared in horror as the vines writhed across the cracked earth, tearing themselves apart in their desperation to escape. The forest was dying. Not slowly. Instantly. The darkness spread across the floor, swallowing the dead roots, the cracked soil, the skeletal trees. Everything it touched turned black, then brittle, then dust. Tarek dragged her toward the corridor. Move! The creature didn't follow. It stood before the open door, arms spread, as if welcoming the darkness. This is the correction, it said. This is the end of the forest. And us? Lira said. The creature smiled. Yes. The darkness surged. The creature vanished. Not consumed. Erased. Lira and Tarek ran. The collapse. The facility shook violently as the darkness spread through the lower levels. Lights exploded. Metal buckled. The floor cracked beneath their feet. Tarek stumbled, nearly falling into a widening fissure. Lira hauled him up, adrenaline burning through her veins. Behind them, the darkness roared. Not a sound. A pressure. A force. A hunger. They sprinted through the corridor, dodging falling debris. The vines outside were still screaming, their tendrils slamming against the walls as they fled in blind panic. The forest was collapsing. The world was collapsing. They reached the exit. Cold night air hit them like a slap. The dead zone was no longer dead. It was dissolving. The darkness spread across the ground like spilled ink, devouring everything in its path. Tarek stared in horror. It's too fast. We can't outrun it. Lira scanned the skeletal trees. We don't have to outrun it. She pointed upward. A half-collapsed observation tower jutted from the facility roof. Metal, rusted, but still standing. Barely. Tarek understood instantly. They climbed. The tower. The metal ladder groaned under their weight. Bolts snapped. Rust flaked away. The darkness surged below, swallowing the base of the tower. Lira climbed faster. Tarek followed, gasping, his injured leg shaking violently. They reached the top platform just as the darkness engulfed the last of the ground. The tower swayed. The world below was gone. The forest, the endless predatory forest, was collapsing like a dying animal. Trees withered, vines shriveled, leaves turned to ash. The darkness spread outward in a perfect circle, expanding with each heartbeat. The heartbeat of the thing in the pit. Tarek leaned against the railing, trembling. Lira, what have we done? Lira stared at the spreading void. We ended the forest. And everything else, he whispered. The tower shuddered. The darkness reached its base. Metal screamed. The structure tilted. Lira grabbed Tarek as the platform lurched violently. The tower began to fall, tipping toward the spreading void. Tarek's voice broke. Lira! The tower collapsed. They fell. The awakening. Lira hit something hard. Not metal. Not ground. Something warm. Something alive. She opened her eyes. Darkness surrounded her. Not the void. Not the hunger. A different darkness. A chamber. Organic. Pulsing. She was lying on a surface that felt like muscle. The air was thick and warm, like breath. Tarek lay beside her, unconscious but breathing. She sat up slowly. The chamber walls pulsed with faint light, bioluminescent veins running through flesh-like tissue. The heartbeat echoed through the space, slower now, calmer. The thing had brought them here. Why? A voice whispered inside her mind. Not words. Images. A world reborn. A world without forest. A world without humans. A world of cold equilibrium. Lira clutched her head. Stop! Stop! The images faded. The heartbeat slowed. Tarek groaned, waking. Where are we? Lira swallowed hard. Inside it. He stared at her in horror. Why aren't we dead? Lira didn't answer, because she didn't know. The chamber shifted. A shape emerged from the wall. Not the creature from before. Something new. Something forming. Something learning. It stepped toward them. Its voice was inside their minds. Warmth, memory, choice. Lira trembled. What do you want? The shape tilted its head. To understand. Tarek whispered. It's curious. The shape's form rippled, shifting, mimicking human proportions. You opened the door. You chose awakening. Why? Lira forced herself to stand. Because the forest was killing us. The forest was correction. Imperfect. Evolving beyond design. You are also imperfect. Evolving beyond design. Tarek's voice cracked. Are you going to kill us? The shape stepped closer. Not yet. Lira's blood ran cold. What does that mean? You will show me the world. You will show me warmth. You will show me life. Tarek shook his head violently. No. No, we won't. The chamber pulsed. The shape grew taller. You will. Or you will be consumed. Lira met its empty, shifting gaze. And understood. The forest had been a mistake. But this was the true end. Not nature reclaiming the world. Something older. Something deeper. Something designed to erase everything warm. Everything alive. Everything human. She took Tarek's hand. We'll show you, she said. Tarek stared at her in shock. Lira. She squeezed his hand hard. We'll show it, she whispered. And then we'll find a way to kill it. The shape tilted its head. Warmth. Memory. Choice. The chamber opened. Light spilled in. Cold. Empty. A new world. A dying world. A world waiting to be erased. Lira stepped forward. Into the darkness. Into the end. Into the reclamation. This is the end of the sci-fi story, The Green Reclamation. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.